Hey y'all, it's random. I'm changing the name a little bit. It's no longer going to be called Random Tuesday because for the last two Tuesdays I have just been tired. So I think I just want to call it random so that I can just do it on whatever day the mood hits me. Waiting for some of y'all to get on here. I'm at home. I've got my computer pulled up so I can discuss what we're going to discuss today. All things fan art. Hopefully by now most of you have seen Black Panther. Hi Shauna, how are you? Waiting for some more people to get on. It's been rainy here in Metro Atlanta, so I've been rocking my head wraps all week. Thank God. It's been a lifesaver because don't nobody got time for hair. Especially when you're in the gym 3 to 4 times a week. There's just not enough time to do hair. But yeah, I'm going to give you guys a chance to get in before I get going. Drufus, what's going on? So like I said, by now, most of you have seen Black Panther. And when a movie of this magnitude has come out, of course you're going to expect that people are going to be making or taking advantage of it, if you will. There's been tons of articles written on Black Panther. There's been a ton of people taking advantage of making products and different things centered around Black Panther. One good example was that everybody dressed up for this movie. So a lot of people dressed up in African themed outfits and different things like that. So there's it's like an African collective that makes African inspired dresses and cardigans, all kinds of stuff. And so because they knew that a tons of people were going to be dressing up for this movie, they started sending out all of their marketing material saying, hey, come pick up you a cute skirt or a cute jumpsuit with, in the African patterns to wear for the movie. And I thought that was clever marketing. Also, it didn't step on the toes of Marvel or anything else, which is what we're going to be talking about today, far as fair use is concerned and Random Tuesday or the Random series. So anywho, I just want to point out how I got this tissue a while back. And if you notice, the Marvel characters are on it, right? So that's just one thing I want to point out. If you've been following my Random series for a while, you know we've been talking about copyright. And so copyright applies to books. Well, in particular, I won't name everything because there's a couple different things. But in particular, they definitely apply to movies. They definitely apply to books. Copyright applies to comics, which is, I guess you could say, a type of book. And again, certain different elements inside of clothing. So again, like I said, I've been seeing a ton of like shirts with characters from the Black Panther movie. So of course, there's been tons with Michael B. Jordan's character, which was Killmonger. And so people have been doing a ton of fan art. The one picture that somebody sent me, it wasn't drawn to look like Michael B., but you knew that's who the character was. And it specifically said, the character was saying, hey, auntie. So obviously taking a line from that movie. Graphic novels, comics, Drew, tomato. Focus here, okay? Oh, God, I know you guys can be real serious about your comic books. Your graphic novels. But again, this is about fair use. So let's just stay focused here, right? So when you have a copyrighted work, you have a number of rights that you can contract out as you wish, right? So obviously Marvel still holds the right to make their comic books. But my understanding of what I believe they did is that they sold the right to make movies of the comics to Disney, right? Thank you, Sandy. It's been saving my life this week. So they have given that right over to Disney in terms of making the movies, which would obviously be Black Panther, Thor, Hulk, Captain America, blah, 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 blah. So they've given that right over. That's one of the rights. So one of the rights under copyright is to be able to make derivative works of your work. So obviously initially it started off as a comic book, a graphic novel. Then it went from a graphic novel unto a movie. And then now, of course, you have tons of different products. And so this is why I showed you guys this here, that they've taken and made, tissue packs with the Marvel characters on it, right? So, generally speaking, they don't necessarily mind when fans make fan art, right? As long as it tends to be one photo, one art, they don't really care too much about that. But I'm just going to explain a little bit about how fair use works in this context. So, like I said, I always pull it up to make sure I'm reading it correctly. So, fair use is a legal doctrine that promotes freedom of expression by permitting the unlicensed use of copyrighted protected works in certain circumstances. And I'm reading this directly from the copyright.gov website talking about fair use. So, generally speaking, for fair use to work, and mind you, this is a defense to copyright infringement. It's not necessarily like something you just go in doing business and saying, hey, I'm going to copy someone's work and then I'll base it upon fair use. That's not necessarily how you want to do this. Anywho, but fair use generally will pass the test if you're using the work for some type of criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. So those are the examples. Like, for instance, some of my law school buddies are here on listening to the Random series. And often our professors would use movies or clips of movies to get a point across about whatever legal doctrine that they were trying to teach for the class that day. So I clearly remember they played a clip from My Cousin Vinny. I can't remember what class it was played in, but it was just a little small portion of that movie. Now, technically, when you play a movie in a setting like that for a class of 52 or more students, you could call that a violation of the public performance piece of the copyright. However, because our professors were using that for a teaching purpose and they only used a couple minutes of it to get their point across, it would likely pass fair use. I don't know if people know, but in the context of when you go to church, churches regularly play music. They do cover songs of gospel music, but because it's used for worship purposes, no one's making money necessarily off that. That is permitted. However, one time, my uncle's church decided that they wanted to broadcast a movie for the kids. And so they had to pay $70, I believe, to the copyright owner, I believe, of the movie that they played. And so my uncle's question was, well, why does a church have to pay? They just assume that a church doesn't have to pay for that use because it's a church. But they only can do that they only get a free pass when they're playing music or singing the music for worship purposes. A movie obviously is not a worship purpose. That's, an entertainment purpose for the children. And so they did pay for that. So again, like I said, a lot of times what happens is when you have people that make fan art, it's just one piece. But if you've seen any of these like Comic-Con, different shows that they have, some of these people get really into it. So like they're making tons of art, or they're making they're dressing up in the full costumes based upon the those comics, and they call that cosplay. Well, a lot of copyright issues can come into play in those situations. But most of the time, again, if you're not necessarily making any money off of it and it's based upon your love of the film or whatever, a lot of times they won't bother you. However, there becomes a time where it gets into this gray area. Like, for instance, J.K. Rowling, she has some of the top fans in terms of the Harry Potter series. And of course, they've been made movies off that, and obviously the books. So there's been a ton of fan art. However, when it got to the point where they were actually selling more than one piece of the fan art, at that point, J.K. Rowling's legal team readily sent a cease and desist in that case. So a lot of times, if you have just one piece, they don't really care. But when it starts getting into the point where you're putting the art on T-shirts, on mugs, or you're basically taking advantage of everyone's excitement over this movie, that's where you get into going against fair use. So there's a number of factors that they look at when they're determining fair use, and I'm just going to go over a couple of them. So one of the first factors that they look at is the purpose and the character of the use, including whether the use is of a commercial nature or is it for a nonprofit educational purpose. So, okay, we already talked about this in terms of, like I said, a lot of times our professors would use movie clips for the basis of a teaching purpose. However, the shirt that people have been sending me with Killmonger on it, that shirt was being offered for sale, which would be a commercial nature of the use of that particular character on that shirt, along with the "Hey Auntie" phrase from Killmonger's character. Another factor that they look at is the nature of the copyrighted work. And I'm just going to read what that says. It says the factor analyzes the degree to which the work that was used relates to the copyright's purpose of encouraging creative expression. So again, they like fan art. They have no problem with fan art. And I'm pretty sure Marvel has some of the biggest cosplayers. But when it starts affecting their ability to make money off of it is when they start looking at you a little funny. Another thing, the amount and substantial portion of it used of the copyright work as a whole. So, for instance, with that shirt, they only used the Killmonger character. However, people know for a fact that when you look at that character, who it is and what it's associated with. So, unless they have licensed it from Marvel, they don't have a right to use that character. There's a number of factors that they use to determine fair use. But like I said, what I'll do is, since I don't want this to be too long, I'm going to post all of those factors that the courts will look at. But again, here's my issue. You never want to do business under the thought of a copyright defense. That's the issue here. It is a copyright defense. It's not something that you go into business saying, oh, I'm copying this work and there's not going to be any issue because I can use this defense of fair use. It's not fair use. Again, if you're making money on the work and you're affecting their ability to make money on their own work. Again, if Marvel is putting characters on tissue, there is no doubt in my mind that they're putting those characters on T-shirts. They're putting those characters on mugs or whatever else they want to put it on. And that includes like the different phrases that's associated with it. So there's a Twitter handle that I follow, and he basically trolls trademark applications. And so the recent one that he posted was a gentleman out of Chicago filed a trademark application for vibranium. And he is using that supposedly to do colognes. We all know where vibranium came from. It's from the Marvel movie. Secondly, he hasn't established any use, which if you want to know what I mean by that, go back to some of my prior Facebook Lives on that issue. But basically, he cannot get a trademark for vibranium for something he has not even established yet. And the moment that he did establish it, obviously Marvel would be sending him a cease and desist. That's just how this works. Usually with copyright characters from books, they are both copyright and trademark. Whereas with most trademarks, if it's just a slogan or a word, it would just be trademark. But some characters, a lot of characters like these can also be trademarks as well as copyright characters, because you're automatically going to associate these characters with Marvel. So Again, like I said, you guys have already seen Black Panther. It was absolutely amazing. I can't say enough good things about the movie. Just the overall visuals, the costumes, the way women were treated in the movie. I've been rocking this head wrap with more pride just because of Black Panther. It's just been really good just to see people feeling good about themselves and who they are and comfortable in their skin. I think anybody can take some pride away from that it's okay to be who you are and not to be ashamed of where you come from. However, don't let your love for this movie get you sued, okay? Because Marvel will come after you, and it's much more easier for them to track things because of social media. When you're posting these things on Facebook and you're posting them on Instagram, they are going to send takedown notices to Facebook to say, hey, these people are infringing on our work. And they have entire departments dedicated to catching copyright infringements. And it's at an all-time high with just the sheer amount of money that was made on this movie. I can only imagine the number of official Black Panther shirts that were in the stores, in addition to costumes and all different kinds of things. There will be tons of that stuff. Can you wait till Halloween come around this year? You're going to see a ton of Dora Milajes and Black Panthers and all kinds of stuff. So if anybody has any questions about fair use, this would be a good time to do that. Because that's basically what I wanted to cover today. So basically you could think of a comic book as the first part. Then the second part was the movies that was made from it. And then the third part would have been all of the, like I said, the fan art, the t-shirts and different things. Of course, they don't mind the fan art. Michael B. posted tons of pictures and fan art that had been sent to him from different fans. But again, it was just one picture. It wasn't like they were going to take that picture and decide to sell it. But if they sell one piece, they might get away with it. But if you start making copies of it and making more pictures, you might have a problem. In fact, I think I was sitting when I went to go see the movie, there was actually a starving artist that had painted several different shots of Black Panther, and he was selling them. Technically, he's not supposed to do that. But again, they let certain things slide, and they can't catch everybody. But again, if you're going to turn this into a business, that's when you're going to run into some issues. So I just figured it would be a good time to talk about this. Take advantage. I'm going to take advantage of it from the legal standpoint of why it can get you sued. There's another trademark attorney that I follow that posted a shirt that said Wakanda on it. But what was special about this one, it was a play on words where the AKA was being pointed out in the sorority colors. So there's two trademark violations right there. The Wakanda obviously belonging to Marvel. And then secondly, the AKA belonging to the sorority of, Alpha Kappa Alpha. So people are seeing this as a money-making opportunity. But again, if you make substantial amounts of money, you will open yourself up to some serious lawsuits. And I've heard of Disney going after people for less. So, just be cautious if you're one of those people that send or that are trying to profit off of this movie by making your own fan art, if you will, and then turning it into products, because you can skirt right on in to copyright infringement. More than likely, it's not going to meet fair use standards. If you're not critiquing the movie, like for instance, when people are doing movie criticism of the movie, so they might play clips or different things like that because they're talking about the work. But if you're using the work to sell something, or whatever it is, if you're again, selling tissue, then you might have an issue. So again, guys, it's random. I'm calling it random without a day anymore because I just cannot get myself to do it on Tuesday like I normally do. But it's going to happen at least one day in the week. So random might happen on Monday. I don't want to step on your toes, Sandy. It might happen on Tuesday. More than likely, it'll happen on the days when I'm not in the gym. So how would Disney go after them? Well, for instance, like I said, more than likely they'll start off with Facebook if that's where they find it. Secondly, they'll probably try to identify their IP address and have whatever websites that they're using shut down. Thirdly, they'll find out what their information is and then send them a cease and desist letter. We both have, Sandy. We both have. It's okay. But Disney does come after them. I've seen it several times and had people shook. But like I said, they have entire departments dedicated to this. And because of social media, it makes it 10 times easier. I think I saw 5 accounts selling different Wakanda and vibranium and different, themes based upon this movie. The only thing that I saw that was not infringing was, like I said, with the African themed company. I think the company is called Zuva. And what they did was they did a play on and said, hey, if you're going to go see Black Panther, pick up a beautiful African skirt or African jacket and wear it to the movie. I thought that was clever without stepping on Marvel's toes by using your art or whatever based upon this work. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I could only imagine that Disney's infringement department was working overtime. And like I said, there are some exceptions. How about random people selling them on the street? I mean, technically the police could stop them, but they don't. Because it's definitely counterfeited items. But more than likely they won't get caught. They can't catch everybody. Basically what I'm saying is I'm speaking to it from this is what the law says. And if you get caught, this is what, can happen. Can they catch everybody? Obviously not. But at least you can't say, oh, I didn't know. Anybody on my randoms that have seen my series and you get caught up in some kind of copyright infringement, shame on you. Because I've given you all of the knowledge that I can possibly give, to let you know that you might not want to do that. Hey, how are you? I'm glad you caught me. But yes, it's another Random Tuesday, y'all, and I've gone almost 30 minutes. Whoa. If you have questions about fair use, let me know. There are exceptions to copyright. I don't want to get, not exception to copyright, but exceptions to fair use. I don't want to get anyone confused, so I want to keep it brief. And again, if you're not using someone's work for a teaching purpose, for a criticism purpose, or you have not done something that transforms the work into something else that they didn't anticipate, more than likely it is not going to meet fair use. There was only one instance that I know of where, and this wasn't a movie, this was a song. 2 Live Crew did a rap song parody of Pretty Woman. And I forget the original artist of that song, but they found that it was a transformative use and that it met fair use standards. But again, fair use is a copyright defense. And so it is a matter of law and fact. So it can be fact intensive and it can be law, but for the most part, it's a defense that you would bring up in court. So let's say your argument to Marvel is it meets fair use. Marvel is going to say, we'll see you in court, and let the courts decide to determine whether or not you really meet fair use. Most people can't afford to fight that. So again, it's just like with anything, with mixtapes and anything, the law says they can sue you, but a lot of times they choose not to, depending upon who you are. But you might catch them on a day where they decide, it's Tuesday, I'd like to sue you now. And depending upon what kind of legal structure you have, you can open yourself up to where they can come after you personally. And some of these infringements can go anywhere from $30,000 to $150,000 per infringement. Particularly for works that we know are definitely registered with the Copyright Office. So again, guys, it's random. It's a Wednesday. I'm going to post, like I said, the fair use factors that the courts look at. Hopefully, like again, you've seen Black Panther at this point. If you haven't, shame on you. You should be on your second try. I'm going to go see it again with my son because he hasn't seen it yet. Terrible. But it's another random, and I will catch you guys on the next one.